And it's
hell is a place that, to answer the question of, what is God's wrath? God's wrath is more than just consuming wrath, okay? Like the flood as an example. It's beyond that. His ultimate wrath, his ultimate judgment is that someone would be sent to hell. That they would be separated from God. They won't be able to pray to God. They won't feel His love. They won't feel His presence at all. They will burn without dying. Imagine that, burning without dying. You would want to die, but you eternally burn. You can barely breathe. You choke on it. Think of all the smoke. It's dark. The only thing you see is the flames consuming your flesh. And you hear the cries of people all around, but you don't even see them. You can't even have the community of the comfort of somebody being right next to you going through the same pain.
It's interesting. Jesus did talk about hell more than he talked about heaven. He also mentioned in Matthew 7 that the way is narrow and only a few people will find the way. But when you have people out there saying that everybody goes to heaven, I don't want to talk about that or whatever, that's a broad way. Everybody goes to heaven, and that is the opposite of few there be that will find their way.
Here's a sobering thought. Jesus said that many will call him the Christ, Lord, Lord, and that they did many great things in his name. They prophesied, they healed the sick, etc. The thing is, here's a sobering thought. He said, on the day of judgment, he will say to those people, I never knew you, you workers of iniquity. People who didn't love and keep his commandments. If you really, really, really love Jesus, you would be obedient. He loves you, so in return, you love him. It causes you to react. Your whole life would be consumed in loving God and people. That means you love everything he said. If I was in a relationship with somebody, which I am, and it's a great relationship, if she, my girlfriend, wrote me some very important letter, I would cherish it, and I would read it, and believe it, and let it affect my life. But that's sad. People can do that in a relationship, but they can't do that with God. This is his love letter.
It is really sad, and as we start to wrap up here, I just want to hit on one more person out there who is really loved by the masses. Really, the media can't get enough of him, and this is going to be, a lot of people are going to take offense to this, I think. I honestly, I would love to talk to him, because I honestly believe he has good intentions, but is misinformed. Tim Tebow, he's a football player, formerly of the Florida Gators, now on the Denver Broncos, who just lost to the Patriots in the playoffs. Tim Tebow is very much just like what we were talking about. He's a John 3:16 Christian. He's very much in God has a wonderful plan for your life, which this is explain to us why the God has a wonderful plan for your life gospel message is ineffective.
Well, let's just go back into the Bible. God has a wonderful plan for your life. Paul. He was shipwrecked. He was stoned to death, but he didn't die. He was left for death. He was persecuted several times, went through trials, tribulations, and he was martyred. He was beheaded. God has a wonderful plan for your life.
Yeah, you got to understand what that means, because I mean, God does have a plan for all of us, but it's not a pure gospel presentation.
Here.
Now, wait, you were telling me about a metaphor about a guy with a parachute, weren't you? Explain that to me, the parachute metaphor.
Parachute metaphor. Okay, there's two men, and one man, they give him a parachute. He's on a plane, and they say, "This will improve your flight." The second man, they give this and say, "Here, you're going to jump from the plane because we might crash." What's the difference? Here's a thought. Let's say the first guy, a secretary, flight attendant, comes up and accidentally spills coffee on him. He's going to take off his parachute and think, this didn't improve my flight. This isn't a wonderful plan for my life. The other guy, let's say that's the same analogy. The flight attendant comes and spills it on him. He's going to draw his parachute closer and look forward to that jump.
I'd maybe even start warning people that the plane is going to crash.
Exactly.
And this is a really great explanation of why God has a wonderful plan for your life. Gospel is just ineffective because it doesn't explain to people why they need the gospel, which gets back to the quote that we just read a little bit ago. And people need to understand that they're dead in their trespasses against God, and that they are headed to hell, and there's only one parachute, if you will, way out of it. And that is the way, the truth, and the life, Jesus Christ.
I'm just going to randomly go through this. This is Jesus Freak by DC Talk. It's a collection of people who were, persecuted or martyred for their faith. Just going along with that. God has a wonderful plan for your life. I'm going to go randomly. Alright. It's called My Heart Seems Too Narrow to Contain His Joy, A Japanese Prisoner and Others, Japan, 1622. A Christian in Amura wrote the following in a letter from prison. Oh, if you taste the delights with which God fills the souls of those who serve Him and suffer for Him, how would you condemn all that the world would promise? I now begin to be a disciple of Jesus Christ, so it's for His love I am in prison where I suffer much. But I assure you that when I am fainting with hunger, God has fortified me by His sweet consolations, so that I have looked upon myself as well recompensed for His service. And though I were yet to pass many years in prison, the time would appear short, through the extreme desire which I feel of suffering for Him, who even here so repays our labors. Besides our sickness, I have been afflicted with continual fever 100 days without any remedies or proper nourishment. Yet all this time my heart was so full of joy that it seemed to me too narrow to contain it. I have never felt any equal to it, and thought myself at the gates of paradise. Later, when he heard that he would be burned alive, he overflowed with joy. He constantly expressed his gratitude to God, for he felt himself unworthy of dying as a martyr for Jesus. On September 2nd, he was taken with 24 others to Ningashukui, where only shortly before 50 Christians had been executed for their faith. When they arrived near the city, they were taken to 25 stakes that were all in a row and tied to them. The wood had been all around them, with the farthest extremity about 8 meters away. When the wood was slit at this point, it took about 2 hours for it to burn to those two tied to the poles. The Christians stood all this time with their eyes toward heaven until the flames finally took them. Not long after this, in 1620, the efforts to exterminate Christians in Japan became law. In 1629, the Fumi was created to test whole villages to see who was Christian and who was not. Fumi meant literally picture to step on. It was initially a picture of a cross or the likeness of Jesus or some other religious picture taken from the art of the churches. Those suspected of being Christians were brought before the Fumi and told to step on the image. If they did, they were let go. If they did not, they were executed. The use of Fumis was not stopped until 1858. This is a quote from Paul. We share in the terrible sufferings of Christ, but also in the wonderful comfort He gives. We suffer in the hope that you will be comforted and saved. And because we are comforted, you will also be comforted. As you patiently endure suffering like ours, you never disappoint us. You suffered as much as we did, and we know that you will be comforted as we are. There's many examples of people who had the wonderful plan for their life from God. They were burned at the stake. They were stabbed through their heart. They were chopped in two. They were torn asunder by bulls. I can go on.
And that is a really graphic, eye-opening picture of really, I think, what we're talking about, what true Christianity often means for a lot of people, is it comes down to persecutions like that.